In the previous videos, we had successfully created a chat application using React.js, Node.js, and Socket.io. I showed you how to utilize WebSockets in order to create a real-time chat application. And then in the last video, I showed you how to hook your application with Firebase Firestore so that every time we refresh our application or log in from a completely different browser, our chat data is successfully retained. I showed you how to create a project on Firebase, how to work with the Firebase Firestore database. Now, if you're not familiar with any of these things that I've mentioned, be sure to check out these videos in my channel. I would highly recommend that you check them out, especially these last two that I created, because they really teach you how to create your very own full stack chat application, literally with front end and back end. So this is a project that you can literally brag about. Hello everybody, my name is Skutlo. Welcome to Coding 101, where my job is very simple. Create awesome video content to enhance your web development journey and experience. Click the subscribe button for more content that will make you a better developer video by video. And if you like this video, be sure to click the like button. If you have any comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section. Now let's get on with our video. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to deploy your very own Fullstack React application on AWS EC2 server. By the end of this tutorial, you should have your very own website publicly accessible on the internet. This is a very important aspect of being a developer. Finally launching your baby, putting them out in the wild, letting them soar is the very meaning and purpose of being a developer. AWS and EC2 is not a bad skill on your resume as well. In fact, many recruiters would be delighted to find that this is something that you are very proficient in as well. So if you're a beginner watching this video, this is a very good chance or opportunity for you to learn how to deploy your very first website. Okay, now let's get our hands dirty. Of course, the first thing that we're going to need to do, because we are deploying our application on AWS, then we need to create our very own AWS account. So if you're not familiar with creating an AWS account, all you need to do is to go to aws.amazon.com. And then once you're there, click sign up. And then you come over here, you fill in the sign up details. I'm not going to get too much into that. Do your very own configurations. And then after you're done doing that, I want you to go to the management console. And once you're at the management console, look for EC2. And once you find EC2, click EC2 and it's going to get you here to the EC2 dashboard. Now it's quite a process to get from there to here, but it's not that complicated. You can do it on your own, or you can just Google the steps on how to do it. But I assure you, it's nothing too complicated. But if it's complicated for you, make sure you leave that in the comment section and I will further elaborate on the steps that you're supposed to take in order to get here. So now let's continue with our video. Now before we continue, I would like to explain a couple of things, what AWS is and what EC2 really is. AWS provides an elegant, AWS by the way stands for Amazon Web Services, if you're not familiar with that. AWS provides an elegant platform for developers to publicly deploy their applications. This platform is known as Elastic Compute Cloud. So in short, or it's usually called the EC2 instance, or it's called EC2, sorry. So the EC2 instance, as it's usually called, is a virtual server that makes it possible to develop and deploy applications without having to concern ourselves with hardware constraints. Although it's a simple platform to set up and get running, it has proven to be quite challenging when you're a newbie or when you're a new developer who's not really concerned with the technical know-how of how this instance operates, and all you're interested in is deploying your newly built application and having it shared across the internet. So in this video, we're going to be primarily focused on learning how to deploy a whole full stack application. When we talk about a full stack application, we're referring to a React application with front end and back end. Obviously, with React.js as our front end and Node.js is the environment where our back end server will run. Okay, so once you're here on the EC2 management console, what you need to do is to go down a little. As you can see over here, I already have 2 instances running. So that's good. So I'm not a slacker. I have a couple of things running on those instances. So what you need to do is that you can select whatever station is closest to you or data center is closest to you, that's fine. But come over here and click launch instance. And you want to name your server. So I'm going to name it chat app. I'm just going to name it chat. Like that. That's good. And then you come over here. Over here, you're going to select Ubuntu. That's the one that I usually use. And then over here, you're going to just select 22.04. That's fine. I normally use 20, but it's fine. But make sure when you're here, you just select the free tier eligible one and don't click the one that needs you to pay. On the instance type, just select T3 micro. That's still fine. And over here, what you're going to do is that you're going to create a file that is going to allow you to access your server. What you can do is that you can come over here to create a new key pair, and you're going to create that file and make sure that you save that file in your local computer because you're going to use that file in order to access your server. Now, I'm not going to do this because I already have created my key pair file, so I don't need to do this. So when you get over here, this is like your security groups. This is the thing that sort of vets the access to the server. So it sees who is trying to access the server and whether or not are they allowed and all that kind of stuff. So what you're going to do for now is that you're just going to click allow everywhere. But I would advise that once we're done with this tutorial, you come back to these security groups and you configure them properly. But just for this tutorial, we're just going to click allow everywhere. And then after we've done doing that, we just click launch instance. Now, after you've successfully launched your instance, what you need to do now is to connect to your instance. And you're going to use that file that you downloaded, the key pair file, to connect to your instance. So click over here to connect to instance, and it's going to give you instructions on how to log or access your EC2 instance. You're going to open up your PowerShell, and what you're going to do over here is that you're going to navigate to the file whereby your key pair file is saved. So you're gonna do that. So this is where I've saved all my key pair files. So that's what I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it over here. And once I do this, click. It's gonna ask me if I want to continue. I said yes. I say yes. And then just like that, magic, I've managed to log into my instance. So it's as easy as that, nothing too complicated. So now we've logged into our instance. So now what we want to do is that we want to prepare this instance environment for what we are going to put inside of it. We're going to put our application inside of this instance. So in order to put our application inside of this instance, we need to prepare it. We need to have Node.js installed. We need to have Nginx. So Nginx is an open source web server that is useful for many features like reverse proxy, load balancing, and many other things. But what you need to know is that Nginx is the one that we're going to use to actually deploy our website, make our website accessible on the internet via this instance that we have. So of course, that's the first thing that we need to install. But before we install anything, we need to say sudo apt update. Sudo apt install Nginx. Yes. So now that we've successfully installed Nginx, we need to check whether or not Nginx is installed. What Nginx is going to do is it's going to take hold or control the public IP of this server that you have over here. So come over here, click on your server, and then we're going to take over this public IPv4 address. And you're going to paste it on your tab, and what we expect to find is the Nginx default page. So this is the page that is going to display once you click that. So now we know that this tells us that Nginx has been installed and it's already doing its reverse proxy. So the next thing that we need to do is that we're not done yet with our server. What we need to do is we need to install Node.js. But before we install Node.js, we need to have this instruction. That you see here. Alright. And then we need to now install Node.js. To check if Node.js has been installed, just type node-js -v, and you can see that Node.js has been installed. And then the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to install PM2, and I'm going to tell you about PM2 in a bit, but let's install that. Alright, so what the PM2 module is that it is a production process manager for Node.js applications with a built-in load balancer. It allows you to keep applications alive forever, to reload them without downtime, and to facilitate common system admin tasks. So what the PM2 does is that your application runs on PM2 forever, unlike starting your application with Node. Because if you start your application with Node, the moment you close your command, then your application is dead. It's no longer live. But if you run your application with PM2, your application runs forever and stops only when you turn off your computer. So let me just give you an example of this. If we go to our project over here, let's go to the terminal. This project that we have over here, we are actually running this project using nodemon. So the moment we cancel this, the moment we close this project over here, then our application is dead. So that connection is disconnected. But PM2 allows that project to be running in the background even when you close this Visual Studio IDE. So even if you close it, the project will keep running in the background unless you turn off your computer. So now, this is why we use it in production, because it allows our application to keep running forever and allows us to reload them and make changes to them without actually stopping the application. So this is a production process manager for Node.js applications. So now that we've done downloading PM2, what we need to do now is to prepare our application for deployment. So what that essentially means is that we need to convert our React application into a Node.js application. So we need Node.js to actually serve or facilitate our React application. So we want to run our React application from the Node.js environment. So instead of having the React application running concurrently with the Node.js application, we want them to run together as one. So it's going to be only one our server is going to be running, and our server is going to be the one serving our static files from React. So in order to do that, what we need to do is to come over here to our applications over here. The first thing that we need to do is that we need to build our React application. So what the build functionality essentially does is that it transforms your React JSX syntax into plain JavaScript programmatically. It compiles or compresses your React project into a build directory with a production build of your app. So everything that you've done is going to be minified, it's going to be minified and bundled up and optimized with best practices for deployment. So that's what we mean when we're actually building our application. So we're just going to run npm run build over here. So after our application is done building, what we need to do is to serve these static files that have been created using our server. And it's a simple way to do it. So what we need to do first is to find a way to actually navigate ourselves to those files. So we're going to use path to do that. This module called path. So we're just going to say require. I'm just going to say path. And I'm just going to copy this code inside of here. So what this code essentially does, you can see that it makes our server to actually navigate to our build folder and fetch those static assets. And once it fetches those static assets, they're going to be served using this router that we've created over here. So they're served using a simple router. So now we can come over here and actually get rid of this command line that we use to run our React application and actually make use of our server, our port 5001 server in order to run our React files. So we can just simply go to our browser and just go over here and just say localhost 5001, and then it's going to serve our React files. So you see how cool that is? At first, we had to serve our static files using a separate React start statement, but now we're actually serving our files using our server. So we can actually cancel this because it's no longer necessary now. This port does not exist. Yeah, you can see that this site can't be reached. So it can't be reached, so we can't connect to that. So now we have only one port that is running and one port that is serving our React static files. So we've actually now created or prepared our project for build. So what we need to do now is we need to actually take this project and put it inside of our server. But before we do anything, what we need to do is we need to come over here. We need to git add this. I assume that for your project, you're using git commit, deploy, and then git push. And once we're doing that, we go to our server now. Get rid of this. We go to our server and we create a file. Inside, we're going to call it apps. So this is the file that we're going to put our apps in. So there it is. So we cd inside of it, and we use git clone in order to clone our project repository inside of the server. There you go. Now it's going to clone that project inside of our folder. And then what we're going to do now is to install our dependencies individually. So we're going to go to cd client. Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to cd inside of cd into the project itself, and then cd into the client. Oh my god. Cd into the client. And let me actually clear this. And then say npm install to install our dependencies. Do the same for the backend. npm install. And then we're done. So now we've installed our application inside of our server. What we need to do now is to actually run our application using pm2. So we're just going to say, because we're in the server, we're just going to say pm2 start app.js. We're going to name our file. We're going to just name it chat app like that. So we're going to start our app.js, and in order to see the logs, we can just say pm2 logs 0. We expect to find listening at port something something, but we have an error, as you can already see. I think maybe this is an express error. So maybe we just need to say npm install express. Start of here, and then pm2 restart our application. Now let's check the logs again. As you can see, there goes listening to port 5000. So our application is successfully running inside of our EC2 instance. So what we need to do now is that we need to configure NJS so that, Nginx, so that it points to this application. It actually runs this application instead of the default application that it's already running in the background. So in order to do that, we need to access Nginx's configuration folder. So this is how we're going to configure it. We're just going to say sudo vim. We're actually going to be using vim. So vim is like a text editor for Ubuntu. If you're not familiar with vim, you can just take like a 5 minutes tutorial on it. It's nothing too difficult. And if you're interested in me actually doing the tutorial, make sure you leave that in the comment section. I will do that for you. It's literally a 5 minutes tutorial. It's nothing too complicated. It's just a simple text editor. So now we do this. So this is the configuration file for Nginx. So you can see this is what you call a server block. So this server block is enclosed with curly brackets, and this is where we add our settings. And you don't need to concern yourself with the settings that we're going to put in here. I don't want to complicate your thinking on Nginx. So for now, just like, alright, so I think we're just going to say press I. I is going to allow us to edit this file. And we're just going to comment this out. So we comment with a hash. We're just going to comment this out, and inside of here, we're actually going to comment this out as well, because we're going to create our own location. All right, we're going to create our very own location. So I'm just going to copy and paste something in here. So you will just copy and paste the same thing. Come over here and actually copy and paste. There's our location. So now you can see that we're going to try and indent this properly. Okay, so we've indented that section properly now. You can see that everything is properly indented. What I want to guide your eyes to is this over here called proxy pass. Proxy pass. It actually redirects all the traffic that is coming in to this application right here. This is why we said that we said that Node.js is a reverse proxy, reverse proxy web server. So what it does is that it redirects all the traffic coming into the server and it redirects it to this application that you're seeing over here. We need to actually save this information, and then after we save this information, we are going to test our syntax and make sure that everything works properly. And in order to do that, we just say sudo nginx-t like that, and it's going to tell us that our syntax is okay and our configuration file test is successful. So what we need to do after this now is to restart our nginx, and in order to restart it, you just say sudo service nginx restart, and then our nginx is going to restart. What we expect to happen is that now if we go to our browser and put in our IP, this is not going to point to the nginx homepage, but it's going to point to our application. So as you can already see, I'm going to put my name over there and say log in. There is our application running from our EC2 server. So we've successfully deployed our application from the EC2 server. But hold on, we're not done. This is not complete. There is the last stage whereby we need to connect our server or redirect our domain to the EC2 server. So what I mean essentially is this. We're going to create a domain name. We're going to call it something like chatapplication.com. And after we've created that domain, what we're going to do is that every time we type that domain on the browser, it's going to point to our application. So that is the last phase of deployment. We're going to buy the domain maybe from Namecheap or from anywhere, and we're going to use that domain. We're going to set the DNS record of that domain so that it points to our IP, so that because our IP is pointing to our application, so that domain is referencing our application. So that is what we're going to do in the next video. So make sure that you watch part 2 of this video. I'm going to briefly explain. I don't want this to be a long video. I'm going to take my time in explaining to you how everything works, from getting your domain from Namecheap, from setting your DNS records, and from pointing your domain to the EC2 IP. It's not going to be anything complicated, so be sure to check that out on my next video. Other than that, make sure that you have subscribed. Make sure that you like this video if you like it. If you have any complaints, if you have any comments, or if you have any good thing to say, make sure you leave it in the comment section. I appreciate positive feedback, and negative feedback sometimes as well is good as well. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time on Coding 101, part 2 of this video.